last time we did this, I was in sort of high productivity mode.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2018 was the year when I sort of figured out productivity. And I think I released maybe like 40 tracks or so last year. So I think it's 6 EPs and a few, one-offs and a compilation here and there, and got a band with my wife, and
Yep.
So this year my plan is to release less. It hasn't really panned out yet because I'm 3 releases in and we're like mid-April now, so we'll see.
Yeah. So I definitely wanted to jump into that because I think last time we spoke, you had just had two of the releases were Short Commute 1 and 2, or 2 was maybe about to come out or it just come out, and now there's number 3.
Yeah, exactly. So those are my Short Commute 1 and 2 I did on the subway on my commute to work, on the OP1 synth, and then when I wanted to do a third one, and they're really sort of rough around the edges or lo-fi or whatever you want to call it. So I wanted to do them almost like you would do a blog post or something. You just put something out and you don't really think about it. So, but I wanted to do a third EP where I sort of kept the melodic and harmonic concepts from the first 2, but I wanted it to sound a little bit more polished. So I did that in the third one I did in Wavetable Synth in Ableton.
Was this still on the commute then? So the idea was to kind of keep, because I remember a big theme of those previous releases was you really only allowed yourself during that short time to get into this space where you could think about that, and that was it. Like it was very time constricted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I did it. Let's see if I can recall. Yeah, I did most of it on the train, but on my laptop, and then I sort of finished it in my studio. So it was still really sort of, time constraints were still the theme. So
have you been finding then, because I know that there's a couple releases also for 2019, have you found that when you work on the other music then you kind of allow yourself a different frame of mind, maybe where it's less with that constrained approach?
Yeah, I find that I am, even when I don't think about it, I work pretty fast. So, but like 15 minutes to make a track is, it's pretty tight. But But now when I mean, for other releases, I definitely take more time than that, obviously, but not a whole lot. I mean, I'll spend a few days on a track.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's something with how just my brain works or whatever creatively. That I don't know, if I hit like a good thing that I want to follow through to a complete track, it's usually a pretty fast process.
It's
generally.
It's interesting because I found with myself too, I'll have those times where and it's interesting too because other people have mentioned that on the show. I remember speaking, what first comes to mind is a producer named Rylan Taggart, and he said that the best tracks or the tracks he's most happy with will come quickly. Like the ideas will just hit, and then it's like you can finish it in a few hours or even a day or 2 days. And those ones that you sit with for days and days and days, it just for whatever reason sometimes that I don't know. There's something missing almost with those tracks.
Yeah, I think that might be part of why some people talk about the music sort of comes to you rather than you, like you're not really composing, you just sort of catching a download.
Yeah.
And when that happens, when it happens, like when it's fast and the result is pleasing, I think those sort of metaphors are, tend to come to mind, that you're channeling something or whatever.
Yeah. It is weird because it does feel that way. Like there'll be times where you're just screwing around and then something clicks and you're like, okay, it's almost like you're gifted something, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to think of it as, when you work with some relative of mine when I was a kid had, he was like a is it called? He was into like shortwave radio.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like a ham radio.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the thing where you just sit around and turning dials and it's mostly nothing, and then all of a sudden you hear Chinese. I think it's sort of, it can feel a bit like that to me. It's just a whole lot of nothing, and then all of a sudden it's gold.
yeah. And I think a lot of people, everyone I've spoken with expresses that same thing. There's a lot of just sitting there and it's like pounding around, playing with different ideas, and then something clicks, and it can get you have to be careful really not to be overly tough on yourself when it's just not coming, because it's like when it does, then it just flows and you can run with something for a few hours and you get all this material really quickly. But it's just when it's not there, you just got to keep kind of pushing through, working. Yeah.
It can be pretty frustrating, of course. Anyone who's done this will tell you, or will agree. But I don't know, it's even if you're, I had this just a week or two ago. I had a free evening, and I was had some studio time planned, and I was like super stoked to get something done, and I had an idea that I wanted to try, and I thought it was going to be massive, but it was like, it just didn't happen. So, and I was like, okay, some days you just don't have it.
Yep.
So then sort of the if you want to think of making music as learning for life, it's a bit of a letting go. Let's just relax and go get a beer instead, and just be an artist tomorrow instead. It's like you have to sort of be a little bit. I don't know. Don't be too rigid around those things. Sometimes you suck, and sometimes you're a genius, I guess.
No, I totally agree, and it's those times when it's not, as you mentioned, when it's just not coming for whatever reason. You have to really make sure not to beat up on yourself. Like I was watching an interview of Odessa after they had produced that massively popular album that really put them in the forefront of electronic music for that genre. And after, when they're working on new tracks, you could see when they were working on things, they were really kind of beating their head against their synthesizers in the studio, because there's all this pressure now that these things, and you would think that when that pressure, like you just had this like really, all this feedback from fans and everything, that then you're like, okay, I need to write another track. It must be really, you could really get in your head, I would imagine. Yeah.
And like things that used to be easy or used to feel natural, all of a sudden they're just not available anymore. Yeah. And I think that's important to and this has come up often, but really, being like understanding yourself and being able to think like, okay, I'm not in that space right now. Things aren't really clicking, and just be easy about it and go, as you mentioned, go get a beer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I tend to think of it as that for me, it seems music comes in waves.
Mm-hmm.
So I can have like a real intense period where I make an EP in a week or two. And then it's sort of quiets down for a bit, and so I've learned to sort of spend the time when I'm sort of waiting for my next wave, then I can spend time maybe learning a few new tricks, or taking notes on stuff that I want to that I might want to try out, techniques or whatever.
Yeah.
Until so for me, the learning about music production and sound design and whatever, that's not the same process as actually making music. And for me, that's quite important, because when the music hits, I want to be sort of fully present and in that, and not thinking about whatever music production trick I picked up from YouTube.
Right.
It has to be in there already.
Yeah. So. And then having kind of at that same period when it strikes, having those kind of tools that you've developed, you want to be able to use those then, because one thing I found is I can sometimes have an idea, but I don't know how to get it onto paper or like get it into the DAW, translate it from an idea into, and then so when it strikes, you need to be like, okay, I spent all this time developing these techniques, now I can use them. It's interesting for sure. So aside then from Short Commute 3, you had Chasing Silence and then Mediterraneo for this year. So let's talk about those a little bit.
So they were originally written for another podcast called Data Cult Audio, which is like a weekly thing where every week there's an electronic composer or producer that makes the music. So I was asked to do about 40 minutes of music, basically.
Cool.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun, actually. But so then I did Chasing Silence. That's an that was like the major part of that set. I sort of edited into, what is it now, 5 tracks and or something, and I think they're all OP1 tracks also. And then I had 2 more tracks that sort of fitted, but they were a little, I don't know, they sounded a little sweeter, so I made a 2-track EP out of them called Mediterraneo. They're a little bit more sort of new agey, I guess. But this Chasing Silence EP was made after I did the Short Commute releases and another one called Forest and Field. I was kind of wired to make music, but I was sort of, that thing when you're overtired, you really need to rest, but you can't sort of shut your head off. Yeah, so and I was coming up on Christmas, and I was like really tired after working for, since summer, whatever. And so I made those tracks during a week or 2, and I was like, I wasn't feeling so well. I was having a hard time sleeping, and I, lost my appetite a little bit. So that's sort of a mild burnout thing, I guess. So
burnt out from music, you mean,
yeah,
or just?
Maybe just I think maybe. I don't know. I think I spent a little too much time in sort of productivity and a little. I should have spent a little more time just relaxing. But so basically, which is, I mean, that's
everyone.
Probably,
music,
exactly.
Seriously,
But so the final or the last 2 tracks on the Chasing Silence EP, I was really like, I think you can hear it in the music. It's sort of sluggish and a little bit. It's like minor key, slow, a little heavy. Yeah. So after that, I decided to take a little bit of a break, or just do something completely different with music. So then I did. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time with Ableton's Wavetable synth. Because it's a really powerful tool, and you can do basically whatever you want with it. But so I wanted to do a project with only that synth. And that became, and I was also really I was looking for, well, I made some music for meditation, basically. Just probably mostly for myself, because I needed to sort of lower my heart rate a little bit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that became a new project called Meditation Waves that I released a few weeks ago now.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, when you're working on tracks like that for the meditation aspect, do you feel that you're really gaining kind of the benefits of that feel of the music while you're working on it, or are you really using it after the fact to kind of listen and just unwind a little bit and get into that meditative state?
Both. But when I made them, I was doing it. So the idea was to, I wanted to make the crystal singing bowls they have in like yoga studios and stuff. I wanted to do that, but electronic style. So I used my push and had a setup there with the sounds that I wanted, and so then I started playing around with it, and I also realized that in order to make music that helps people sort of enter a meditative state, I need to be in that state myself, because I realized I was playing too fast, I was trying to make things happen, stuff like that. And for meditation, at least for me, has a lot to do with things not happening. So I sort of and then I don't usually go back and listen to like my own music, but I do sometimes, and this Meditation Waves EP really works for me as a relaxing thing.
Yeah, because I spent some time recently re-listening, because we talk back and forth here and there via Instagram, but then when we started really saying, hey, let's knock out another episode, I spent more time kind of digging into your music, thinking about questions for a podcast and such, and I found myself totally just in the best way possible, almost losing track of the ideas I wanted to come up with, because it was so I really felt like I got in a very meditative state. Now I remember I was listening to Chasing Silence there, but it's all of it is beautiful.
Cool.
Nice. It's of course, and it's so, I remember speaking about that on our previous conversation around the time constraints of music, which I thought was just so fascinating, and then also this intention with ambient music really to remove so many have minimal elements, but in doing so really bring you into this meditative space and this different mindset. Yeah.
It's that's I don't know, maybe just part of my creative, my way of being creative. But I think that for the meditation waves, actually for most of the ambient music I've been doing, I think I tend to look at it not as like a track that starts at one point and then it sort of, it has like a song structure. I try to think of my music that as if it's like it's always there, and sometimes you sort of dip your head in a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're like tuning into something, like it's there. You're kind of like this receiver for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that idea, or that way of thinking about it, comes from, it's actually how I started. My first ambient EP is from what is it now? Maybe, yeah, coming up in a year, I think. Maybe May 2018. It's called Atoms of Night. And the idea for that EP was, I was on my balcony one night, like a early spring night, and I was watching the stars, and it was really dark, so I could see the outline of the Milky Way. And I started to think, like, I wonder what it's like up there. I wonder what it sounds like. If it's almost like it's a school of fish passing by, just slowly drifting by, but it's galaxies and stuff. So that's the idea of, like, if I just pop my head in for a minute or two, I'll hear music, and then I pop back out. But then that doesn't mean that the music stops. It just flows by. So like a river, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
That makes it harder to make proper pop songs, though.
Right, they're not always just playing on repeat.
Yeah,
it's not like
exactly.
Right. It's not like a essence of life. But I think I kind of feel like you're kind of looking to pull something that's kind of inherent in existence and kind of grab that and recreate that in your music. So you're right, like a pop, it might not be like a pop track over and over again. It's something different. Yeah.
That's well said. I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah,
it's very cool. I mean, I just love how you mentioned that it's like always there, and you're able to kind of pop in and I think anyone that writes music or has it doesn't even have to be music, really artistic, creative pursuits, really find that it's a very strange thing, because you get in kind of a mindset where you're removing boundaries. You're not thinking intensely, you're removing, and then these ideas come to you. So it really is like that. You're kind of popping in and out of something.
Yeah, for me at least. It's, I guess it's different for everyone, but seems to be like that for me, at least at this point in time. I enjoy making pop tracks also, but not lately.
Yeah. So and that I kind of wanted to jump into too, because you do have a side project called Little Boxes. Yes. Is that with your wife? Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's so
me
cool.
And my wife. That's we don't have time to do it as much as we want, but that's a pretty straightforward electronic pop project.
Cool.
And the lyrics in Swedish and stuff, so it's maybe not very accessible for anyone. But so that started as when my wife and I met. We both, we've been making music separately, before we met. And then we sort of, when we started dating and stuff, we were a little bit sort of hesitant to try and make something together, because if it didn't turn out, if it didn't sound good, it would be awkward. Yeah. But then we just we got asked to sing at someone's wedding, basically, and then we just had an excuse to try a few songs out, and then we just realized that we really it's a super cool way to spend time together with someone that you really, really like, and we just like the way it sounds and how our voices sound together and stuff. We've been doing that.
That's amazing, because I'm sure you can speak to this, but the creative process, being a producer, a musician, it's time consuming, so if you have the ability to do that with your wife, that's amazing, because then life is so busy anyways. Now you get some time to really do that together. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I've been in bands before, and as soon as people start having kids and stuff, finding time to rehearse and whatever, it just goes, everything just goes out the window basically.
Yeah.
So it's good to have your bandmate in your apartment.
Yeah. I like that. That's so cool, man. Yeah, and I would only imagine. I mean, it's cool because you both, as you mentioned, played music before and separately, and to come together. I mean, that must just be really cool for a relationship as well, because now you're even creating something differently together, and it must be
definitely
very, very cool.
And it's a very clear to me. I mean, the stuff I made before we started with Little Boxes was a lot more like singer-songwriter, indie folk type stuff. And the thing, and my wife Anna, the stuff she's been doing, like house vocals and leads for dance music and whatever. And the thing we do together doesn't sound like any one of those two things. So it's a cool way of like coming together, and then something new happens that wouldn't happen otherwise.
Yeah, and that's when the best, I think, that's when these really cool collaborative experiences that can bring kind of different genres or different ideas or different perspectives together, and then something, as you mentioned, comes out that's different, and it can really be different than what people have heard so far. So it can be important for that reason. Yeah.
I'm actually working on another collaboration thing now that I don't think I'm supposed to talk about it too much, but just the process of collaborating, sending tracks back and forth, and hey, here's an idea, do you think you can do something with this, and getting something back. It's just bouncing ideas around. It's really cool to see how, like, let's say I make a chord progression with a synth sound that I like, and some other bits and pieces on it, and then I send it away and get like a week later I get something back that's completely that it's all ideas that I would never have. And when that happens, to be sort of accepting of the thing that is collaboration. The whole idea is that the whole idea is to make something that you couldn't make on your own. It's a lot of fun. It's
funny. I was just kind of talking about that same idea Friday, where a lot of people will look at producers, especially famous producers, and think, okay, this one person wrote this track, but if you look, it's a team of people, and sometimes it's a little, at the very top, it's a little fakey, but it's that idea that it's this team, right? There's multiple producers there, and it's a collaborative experience, and I think that's important to realize that a lot of, and of course with bands, right, that's always a collaborative experience, but so much of this beautiful music comes out of multiple people working on something, and then it becomes something different than what one of the individuals could do.
Exactly. And it's I'm not much of a control freak personally, but if you are, I think collaboration becomes really hard or frustrating or whatever. So for me, the whole thing is just like an exercise in letting go and letting things happen. And then you never know what comes out. So maybe it's genius, maybe it's not.
Well, that's it too, because it is letting go, because music can be so challenging, because you come up with this idea and it's your idea, you write out these portions of an idea, and you kind of have an idea of where the song could go, and it's hard to pass it over and say, okay, you take it, and it's totally different then, but that's part of the process.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that particular thing is quite good for me, because I've been wanting for a long time to make music basically just with beats, and I every time I try, just like I can't get it to sound good, actually. Not yet anyway. So but it's really cool for me to come up with like these more ambient or melodic harmonic type things, and just send them away to someone that's really good with beats. And get something back, and I made a house track, and that's super fun.
Because you have to as anyone out there, a producer has to really understand their their proficiencies. And then
Yeah.
especially if you're in this collaborative experience, you don't want to have two people that might be really good at writing melodies. You want someone that's
exactly.
melody, and then someone who's good at the foundation or like the production and taking it from start to finish. And
Yeah.
that's when you can really get this this really beautiful collaborative work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's very fun. I've been kind of toying with the idea of collaborating, and I get myself way too busy, and so and I think I am a bit of a control freak too. I have ideas, and I'm like, I could pass this off, and I mean I should, and I think it's more of a me being busy thing, but because I've never done it. I've never had a track from start to finish that has been me and someone else, so I actually don't have that experience. It could be something new and interesting. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, if it's, I definitely recommend trying it if you get the chance. But it's not a guarantee that it'll be awesome.
Right. Yeah. But it is great now. We can send music around, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
like you're just communicating with someone via the internet, and that's so amazing. I mean, it's so cool. Yeah. So how have you been enjoying? So you mentioned with kind of the newer of the releases this year, it was done within Ableton within using wavetables. So what's that been like? Are you enjoying that process? Because I've played a little bit with wavetables. It gives you all the tools. So you're right, you can do anything. But
which is I mean, it when you really get into it. For me, it gets overwhelming pretty fast, but I tend to, like when I did the meditation waves stuff, I think it's all of it is on the whatever settings there when you just open it up.
Oh yeah.
So I started to learn the wavetable synth, but I sort of never got past the first setting, basically. Because I thought that sounded so soft and smooth and beautiful.
Right.
So that was it for me. And then I just started working with modulations and LFO type stuff.
Well, I mean, other people mentioned that same thing. I mean, people have almost used presets like that as a really creative outlet, because if you have an idea, maybe you have like two chords or maybe kind of melody line or something, and you switch between these different presets, it sounds a bit different. It can trigger these ideas, and sometimes that's it. That's all you need, and then that's that's a track, or at least the foundation of a track. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I'm not scared of presets personally. I don't know. There's so many people that are so much better than me with some sound design and making. There's a guy I really like. I think he's out of LA, Los Angeles, called Elephant.
Yeah.
He makes like effect racks and instruments for Ableton. And they're super. They sound awesome, and they're really easy to use, and at the very least they're like a really, really good starting point for making something.
Yeah.
So they just sound awesome right out of the box, and then you're off to the races, basically, which is a quality I don't have time to spend like half a day tweaking sine waves, but someone else seemed to
other people. yeah, I know, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, some people will spend days and days and days on, which I think is really, it's finding what works best for each individual as a producer, because just to speak to what you just brought up, I found that I've been really lucky recently where I've been getting a lot of different sample packs and then preset packs for synthesizers in Ableton, and that's almost a very creative process, because you can grab things that would be something you would never come up with and lay it in there, and then it might just lay the foundation for an idea, and then you can rip it all out and rebuild something. But it just it starts that process, and my weakness big time is percussion, and I think we're kind of both in the same boat there with beats and percussion. It's somewhere I really have to work, so I will pull in like drum loops just as a placeholder, just to hear, and then something's clicking, I'll work a little bit further, and you can always pull those out, and it's using the tools. Sorry.
Oh, I have to try that. Actually, it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. I realize I'm like, why beat yourself up and be like, okay, I suck at percussion. Just sit here and learn percussion, or use these tools.
Yeah.
Get an idea and then do, go forward with it.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day about microbrewery, microbrewing, making your own beer, like at home or in your basement or whatever, like really DIY type stuff. And it doesn't make sense to me. Like I enjoy drinking beer.
Yeah.
I have no interest in making beer.
Yeah.
That's just a waste of time, because there's plenty of people that have spent a lot of time learning how to make beer at sort of with consistent quality.
Yeah.
Why don't I just drink their beer?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for me with presets and sound packs and stuff. I mean, I'm into getting a musical idea down fast. And there are tools for that, sound packs and presets. I'm happy to use them.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to reinvent the wheel, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And just as you said, when it's all when a track is finished, it's gonna sound like me anyway, because I'll tweak stuff along the way. Yeah. Inevitably. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something that's been new for myself, that has really clicked, and I've been kind of thinking, why the hell haven't I done this before? Because I'm much happier with at least some of the ideas that are coming out now, and and I think it's really acted as a tool. And if you look at this world of producers, sometimes you listen to a track and think, okay, they did absolutely everything for this track, but when you dig in a little bit, sometimes you'll learn, like, okay, they use presets too. Like Porter Robinson, I think for Worlds he used only the native instruments in FL Studios to write this life, EDM altering album, so it's things like that. It's like, how, right? So
I love that kind of stuff. I think it's it takes guts to stay with the presets, because it's not like when you get asked about it, it's not cool to say, I just use whatever's there.
Right.
But it sounds good, so why not?
Right. I know, man. Yeah, that is so funny, because there is this it's an interesting world, because I've gotten really interested in recently people who are songwriters, just almost as like just an interest to you go and you look at these songs that are really, really famous. And I remember 10 years ago, I would think, oh, like Adele, Hello, she wrote that song. She sat down and wrote, and you look and it's no, there's a guy who wrote the song. Yeah. And it's funny. There's this whole world behind the scenes that I think people don't think about. Yeah.
It's not just a loner with an acoustic guitar anymore.
I know. Apparently. Apparently. Yeah.
It's fine,
Yeah. The world is changing.
So it seems.
Yeah. So then, so now for 2019, you have these releases, and this most recent was only a few weeks old. So where do you kind of see the rest of the year going? You're collaborating. You have 2 collaboration pieces in the works. So is it more focused there? Or are you still kind of trying to tune down the releases for 2019 of your own music? And
well, Nah, I'm gonna do whatever comes my way, probably, because that's how I enjoy living. But so I'm gonna do some more stuff with my wife and a few gigs, like live shows and stuff, and then I'm gonna most likely release something with this other project I'm in. And then I think I will do another ambient, at least one more ambient EP for Rural Sounds, my Norwegian label.
Oh yeah.
That sounds like it's enough for a year.
It's funny that I mean, I just remember starting 2019 and having ideas for what I wanted to do and such. And it's incredible that we're already, a quarter, no more than a quarter through the year, a third of the way through,
Yeah.
It flies.
It's fast. It's really fast.
It's fast. Yeah. Yeah.
Oddly fast.
Oddly fast. And having, and I know you have a family and a wife, so there's a balance always, but I think that makes it just, I don't know. I had a conversation recently with a producer named Departure, and by the time we release this, that will be out, so people may have heard a bit of that conversation. But he has these things like he's working full time, where he got an advanced degree, so he's very busy. And rather than framing that as like a hindrance, almost, he's learned to take the time he has and really use it to the most kind of effective way. And I think that having this conversation with yourself too, like you're finding with your music and the way you produce, you're doing the same thing, because life is busy and fast. And then, you mentioned like using presets or getting tracks out quickly and letting that be this kind of creative expression is where you find it fits best for you. It's cool, rather than saying like, oh, I'm too busy, it's a hindrance, blah blah blah. It's like you find what works.
I tend to I don't want to sound judgmental about it, but I tend to I don't think having a busy life and just using I don't know. People tend to use that as an excuse for not, getting stuff done. But everything's a trade-off. I don't know. Maybe I could do more workouts and make less music. I don't know.
That's very true for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you have something that you want to do, there is time to do it, and plain and simple.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, you hear these conversations with like yourself and other producers, and it's, sometimes middle of the night, or as, a perfect example on that commute to work,
Yeah, exactly.
Finding the time. Yeah.
Actually, I think I'm going to do in a week or two, like a sort of 1 hour every morning, something like that. Just to see if I can come up with a few ideas that I can develop. So there are I don't know, plenty of ways to get going with tracks and projects, whatever. It's just finding those pockets of time and making it's it happens when you make the choice to do it. It doesn't happen just by sitting around wishing you had more time.
Yep. And I just kind of had this thought recently, kind of speaking to that, is I remember maybe 9-10 months ago, looking at the music I was writing then. I'm happy with how I've progressed, and there have been times where I've been frustrated back then, and I was like, never in a scenario where I was like, okay, I'm gonna slow down on this or anything, but just frustrated. And I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like you're so happy to have found those little pockets to continue working and just come up with little ideas, because as it progresses and you see that there's this upward trend, and you get better at your creative process, you get better at the music you're putting out, and it grows and it progresses,
Yeah. And I realized just now, as I'm hearing you speak, that I don't think in terms of having time to do things anymore. Actually,
it's just a habit. Like, you're going to be working on music. It's just when.
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
there's never going to be. Never. I'm not like. Yeah, I don't have that. I'm in, 3 weeks from now, I think I have an afternoon off. Let's make a track then. I don't do that at all. I got there's 15 minutes here, and I'll take maybe my lunch break, whatever. There's always something.
Yeah. I remember, I think from our previous conversation, that was part of it too, right? At lunch, you would have the OP1 with you and work on music. Yeah. See, there's always time. That's so cool. Yeah. That's cool. Are you still using the OP1 quite a bit?
Yeah, I do actually all the time. But I tried to. That was also part of the what became meditation waves, because I wanted to do something that was not on the OP1. But now I'm getting back into the OP1 again, and I want to do stuff with it that I didn't do before. So yeah, you can, like, come back to your tool. You've picked some tricks up from somewhere else. You can apply them. Then you sort of stay fresh.
Yeah. I would imagine, kind of moving between that's actually really cool. Like moving between different processes.
Yeah.
Keeps it fresh. You come back to the OP1 and it looks like a new tool, and you might have kind of almost forgotten some of your old habits, and it would be a different process. Yeah, that's cool. I like that a lot. Yeah. Because it's anything you can get to kind of spur that idea. It's whatever tool it is.
Yeah, exactly. And that was actually one of the things when I did the Chasing Silence EP. As far as process and the techniques I used, they were very similar to the Short Commute EPs, and also in some ways to the Forest and Field EP. So I wanted to, like, okay, now I know how to make music in this way.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can learn another way. And I sort of had to just, try it on another machine for a little while and see what could sort of shake loose.
Yeah, because it is. Go ahead, sorry. I didn't mean...
so now I feel I have a sort of refreshed perspective on the OP1 as a tool. So we'll see what comes out of that.
Yeah, no, it's fun that way too, because I think the minute a person gets to a space where they're like, okay, I know how to do this, and this with this process for a song, you want to then take that next step. Everyone does. It's always this growth process where it's like, what can I change a bit? What can I tweak that will take what I learned here and take it up to the next step? And
And that process is endless. So you become you're sort of always improving. As long as you stay moving, you're improving. So and that's sort of I don't see that it will ever be not fun anymore. It's like it's just an ongoing thing. That's
No, I think about that, where one thing that's fascinated me with music is there's always a better, and I don't mean better, quote unquote, but always like a perfect song out there. It's like this kind of, there's music out there that's unwritten, and it's just kind of waiting there. Yeah.
Lots of it, actually.
Yeah. That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't get old. It definitely doesn't. It's an addiction for, I think, most of us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a good one to have, though.
It is. It really is. Yeah, and especially, I mean, now that you mentioned that part of this can be with your wife, that's so cool, because then it's even better. Because I know with myself, my girlfriend has different hobbies. We don't share this processes. So there's time when I'm working on music and I'm thinking, I want to really make sure I'm spending time with my girlfriend too, and there are different times, but having those come together is really cool. You have kids, correct?
Yes. I have a daughter that's 12, and my wife has a son that's 15. So we sort of met like from previous relationships. Basically.
Do they play music?
Yeah.
Is it a family?
Dante, our son, he plays piano. He goes takes piano lessons, and then he sits on YouTube to pick out songs. Yeah. And my daughter Viola, she's into horses.
Oh, so cool.
It's like riding is life.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's so sweet. And when you mentioned YouTube, that's so cool because his generation now has access to, he can learn piano on his computer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, YouTube is really, it's just such a great thing for all those. I mean, imagine the thing. I mean, just if I'm thinking back, what I've learned about my sort of niche things with music production or whatever for over the last year. I mean, it's invaluable, I think.
Yeah.
This, the amount of inspiration and education that's on there, it's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about that too, because I picked up electronic music about 10 years ago, and I only did it for maybe 3 months. I played music throughout my life, but I picked it up and I dropped it pretty quickly. And I know YouTube was around then, but I didn't use it, and I don't know if it was as amazing as it is today, because you're right. Like, I just picked up some techniques last night that changed a project I'm working on. It just magnified it. And if you don't have access to that, you'd have to be the person figuring that out yourself. And that's that's
exactly.
Yeah.
You'd be in a library reading about,
right.
I don't know. It's like
reading the manual for Ableton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, it's so cool. It's so cool. And I'm stoked. I mean, so just speaking kind of to how you and I met and how this whole thing has progressed. Like, we started speaking on Instagram. We did one of the first episodes for this podcast, and then this, as I mentioned earlier, is the first time someone has come back on a second time, which I'm really stoked about. I want anyone who's come on who wants to do another one to do so, and this will be the first YouTube component, which I'm super stoked about too.
It's awesome.
A lot of firsts.
But I think just about that, meeting people on Instagram and stuff, I think most, or maybe not most, but a lot of really good sort of music related relationships that I've formed over the last year or two has been over, I mean, I'm like people I've never met.
Yeah.
Rural Sounds, Lila Amparo, my label for my ambient stuff. Never met her. She's in Norway. I'm in Stockholm.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will at some point, of course. But it's we have daily. I mean, it's just a daily back and forth. Super. It's like finding a friend that you've never met. It's a little weird, but it's super cool. And stuff. People in LA that I chat with about these things that I've never met and probably will never meet. But it's. And that, you can't just phone someone up and start asking questions. It's amazing how those kinds of possibilities. It's mind blowing, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's so cool. It's so cool. And I mean, I'm in the same boat. Met a lot of people that are on other around the world, and it brings this really. This community of especially looking at kind of specific genres. I mean, you'll meet people around the world that love exactly the same music you do or I do or whoever, right? And then now suddenly this community is right in front of you, and you meet the people. It's not like, I'm going to send mail over to someone in a different country.
Nah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know anyone that likes my kind of music in my town, so it'd be a pretty lonely life without the internet for me. But now I feel like sort of, there's a crowd. I'm part of it. I like it.
It's so important to feel that sense of community, and that can be just as rewarding as if you're putting out music and you've met these people around the world, and that there's now this community of people that support this genre or whoever it is out there making their own specific kind of sound, right? Then rather than being siloed and having no place to produce that music or release it, now boom, people resonate with it. Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man, dude. Yeah, I'm just really, I'm really stoked, and I think the coolest thing is really, man, just being able to catch up with you again and talk for a while. I mean, how cool! It's just like we started talking. When was our first one? Like, how long ago was that? Maybe a few months? No, more than that. 6 months?
Let's see, what is it now? It's April. Yeah, probably 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Super cool. I enjoyed the first one. I enjoy this one even more. I don't enjoy watching myself on camera, but maybe I can.
I think that's everyone.
Thing.
I think that's everyone. Don't worry,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, it's funny. I think I resonate with that because now I've definitely gotten used to, like, when I'll go back and edit video or edit audio, I've gotten used to hearing myself speak. But the first ones, man, I was just like, who the hell's going to listen to this? It's so cringy.
Yeah, same time way back in the day when I heard myself, like when I recorded my own vocals the first few times, that was rough.
Yeah, it is, man. I still can't get over that hump. I won't show anyone stuff I record vocals for. That's for me only. Okay, yeah. But yeah, man. So this has been awesome, man. And seriously, so I think we say, whatever, in 6 months, a year we do number 3, and we'll have to figure out what the first is there though for the first, because we knocked off a lot of firsts here.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. I appreciate it, and it's just awesome chatting with you.
Cool. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course.